where you're going, what you're doing in Latvia.
Well, we're going to be taking off for Latvia on the 25th of May. We'll be there for a week. I'm taking my wife and a computer modeler with me. And the purpose of our trip is to help them implement a land value tax for the country of Latvia, and in particular for the city of Riga, the capital. And we're also traveling with 6 other economists that are going to be restructuring the economy and the banking system of the country. So it's going to be a rather powerful week. We will be meeting with all the key elected officials of the major parties and be at both the municipal and the country level. Other ones are not as well known to our group.
Not Larry Summers?
No.
No. Okay. Anything else about Latvia?
I was there 3 years ago, and basically at that point I saw that there was a lot of interest. The reason that the country is going this direction is that their income taxes totally failed them. They're only collecting about 10 or 15% of the taxes from income that they should be. That's because basically no one is paid with cash. They're paid with benefits like automobiles or housing or meals out, this type of thing. So as a result, they are going to give up entirely on the income tax and the sales tax and go to a land value tax for producing revenue.
Wow. That's amazing. Are you blown away by this development?
Of course, I'm blown away by
right,
it.
right. And this is so exciting. I'm hearing about it, very simply for not the first time, but it's sinking in a little bit deeper about how important this is. Tell us about Greenwich, Connecticut. Let's go backwards, maybe.
Well, Greenwich, Connecticut is one of the wealthiest communities in the United States. It's interesting, though, that not everyone who lives in Greenwich is wealthy. We have people that live in very modest homes, but people that live in mansions that are in the $25 to $50 million range. It's a small city, about 62,000 people, but it has some of the highest rents in its retail center and office buildings. They're comparable to Manhattan in terms of the prices that people pay for real estate in our primary areas.
And you've been the chief assessor there, head of the assessment office for how long?
8 years.
And you were in Bridgeport, Connecticut before that?
Bridgeport before that, yes.
And how long were you there?
3 years.
Okay, and you live in Bridgeport.
Yes.
And you're about ready. You're retiring.
In about a year.
In about a year, and you're planning on moving to California, Anaheim, I believe.
That's right.
With
yes.
your wife Tony.
Yes.
And you have children.
3 children.
Okay. And would you like to talk about them for a minute?
Well, we have a son living in our home that we're going to be retiring to in California.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our daughter and her entire family are living in our present house in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And we have my son that lives on Long Island. So we eventually think that all 3 of the children will make their way to California. That's what they all plan for the future.
Okay, so if we jump to the very beginning, and I don't mean when you were born, but you ran into the Georgist movement, I believe, in San Diego,
Yes.
California. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, what got me interested in the Georgist movement is that there was a Henry George house that you had to pass as you went into the university there. And they had a sign that said, learn why land values should be taxed. I was a real estate major at that point, and I thought these people must be crazy. You know, who would want to tax, raise revenue from land? So I knocked on the door and went in and started attending their sessions. And from that became a lifetime Georgist. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I just really, I saw the cat very quickly. It made sense.
So you were convinced. You went in to argue. You went in to defeat their notions. You knew they were incorrect, and
Yes.
and you came around. And then what did you do next?
Well, I went to work in Los Angeles area. I met Harry Pollard there and worked with him a lot on in the Henry George School of Los Angeles, and had a job as an appraiser at a savings and loan. And then I had the wonderful opportunity of going to work for Irene Hickman up in Sacramento County, County, California. And then from there, I got a call from Jim Clarkson, the mayor of Southfield, Michigan.
What year was that?
That was 1967. And he said, my assessor is gone. I have to find a replacement, and you're my choice. I want you to come. I was 26 years of age at the time. And when I went to work there, I think there was only 2 employees that were younger than I was. All the rest of them were in their 40s and 50s. But it was still a wonderful opportunity. The staff was great. I was there for 3 years, and we did a complete redo of the land values. What we basically did is to depreciate the buildings as much as possible and raise the land to the highest possible. It didn't break the laws. It merely enforced them in such a way that we were able to raise much more revenue from land and less from buildings.
So it was a combination of accurate assessments and depreciating buildings. Buildings
Yes.
are wasting assets; they need to be
Yes.
depreciated, and any authority could really do that. That's a perfectly legitimate piece that nobody does.
Yes.
And Jim Clarkson did. Tell me a little bit. Jim Clarkson fell off the radar screen pretty quickly, and there was a movie that came out, One Way to Better Cities. It was sponsored by Robert Schalkenbach Foundation.
Yes.
It came out. It was an award winner, a half-hour movie. 1969. I use it all the time at the Henry George School in Philadelphia. Every semester I use it with a fundamental class. Tell us about Jim Clarkson.
Well, Jim Clarkson became a judge, a court judge, and so he left his role as the mayor of the town and got a very good job. He's retired. He's still a jurgist, but he is not an activist. He doesn't go to any of our meetings and things. I've really only hear about him occasionally. I don't think that there's many people that really keep track of him. I think that he spends a lot of time in Ontario, where he has a second home.
There was I heard the story, and correct me if I'm wrong, or correct the parts that need to be corrected. He had a $5,000 a year job as mayor of Southfield, and he was offered a $25,000 a year judgeship.
Yes.
And that's correct.
I think so.
More or less.
More or less.
You know, the numbers may not be perfect,
Right.
but that's So which one would you choose?
I think he chose the right thing.
Yeah.
I think he was an excellent judge, and it was a career, and he had already done his part in the city as mayor. He had done what he wanted to do.
How long did the new property tax regime and assessments last there?
Well, I'm sure that it lasted for some time. I don't think anyone was out to destroy it. The assessors pretty well go along with the status quo, and I think it stayed for a long time. My deputy became the assessor there, and I think he continued on. But I think that as time goes on, that was more than 30 years ago, and so it's a totally different situation.
That was more than 40 years ago.
Yeah, 40 years ago, right? Okay.
What's a decade?
Yes.